Thanks everybody for joining. This is the kickoff of our weekly live podcast. We're going to be trying to do this every single Wednesday. We're going to bring you different guests from different walks of life, some hunters, some fishers, some extreme athletes. So yeah, this is going to be really cool. If this is our first episode again, we're here. I'm joined by Chris Fay. He is the legendary, what do they call you? The Wahoo Whisperer?
The Wahoo Whisperer.
Dude, that's awesome. So cool, man. So tell me a little bit about growing up. How did you get into fishing? Tell me about where you learned it. Just tell me, talk to me about the ground up.
Fishing, I never really got into fishing until I was about 7, 8 years old. And my grandfather actually was the first person to introduce me to fishing, saltwater fishing. I started out bass fishing in little ponds and lakes, any lakes and ponds I could get my, in range of riding a bicycle or a skateboard or anything close by. I didn't care if it was a ditch, if it had water, there was a fish to be had.
Awesome.
So started out doing a little bit of freshwater fishing, and when I got tired of that, got into the saltwater fishing in Ocean City, Maryland. And my grandfather was a big saltwater guy, and started out, fishing close to home, catching little stuff, porgies and the inshore stuff, and then went for yellowfins and stuff like that. And my I would probably say my real time when I knew fishing was for me was watching all the big boats back in Ocean City, Maryland for the White Marlin Open that's been going on for the last
Absolutely.
30, 40, 50 years. I knew right then and there that that's what I wanted to do and that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. And sure enough, that's what I'm doing now. And, it's really transitioned fishing from, watching it back then to what it's become now, which is for the better of the sport. And I couldn't be happier, fishing every day for a living and teaching people that come on our boat, all walks of life, people that have been fishing for 20, 30, 40 years, people that have just stepped foot on the boat for the first time. So it just, fishing will grab every aspect of life, and that's the cool thing about it. Watching the excitement from the first person ever seeing a fish or feeling the tug of a fish or whatever it might be. It's cool to see the excitement from especially the younger generation of kids.
Well said. No, that's a really good outlook. So tell me a little bit more about those early days. I know you started in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. That was a lot of freshwater
bass fishing in Pennsylvania. Yeah, my family had a cabin growing up.
Cool.
And we used to go up there for the Little League World Series.
Nice.
And decided to, my dad said, hey, why don't we try fishing for a little bit? And I said, I wasn't too interested in it. And I'll never forget the first fish I ever caught. And we named him Frankie. And,
what was he? Was the bass?
He was a bass.
Awesome.
He was a big bass, like 7 pounds.
What?
And yeah, my uncle used to stock the pond we fished, and it was like fishing in a fishbowl, which is some of my favorite fishing.
That's awesome.
But yeah, growing up in the Northeast, actually, about 6 or 7 years old, we moved down south here, and that's when fishing really took off. Fishing in the Keys a lot, fishing with my father's friends and my family's friends, and going on this boat, going on that boat. We couldn't get enough of it.
That's awesome. So let me ask you, once you kind of made your way to the Keys, that was like a big game changer for you.
Big game changer, yeah. Watching the amount of people that were flooding to a specific place to do one specific thing, and that was fishing. Balls to the wall fishing, that's all they wanted to do. That's all they wanted to see. Boats backing in, and me being a spectator, watching these guys who are some of my good buddies now, and guys who I, call, close friends and acquaintances that I talk to 3-4 times a week. So, yeah, the Keys is an awesome place, not just for fishing, for all the outdoors, whether it's diving,
There's some
spearfishing,
really good
free
dive sites down
diving.
there.
It just all depends on, what you're into. For me, it was fishing, and that's what it always will be. I never really got into spearfishing or diving or stuff like that. I always wanted to be above the water,
Okay.
Fishing and doing that kind of stuff. So
Cool. So now, what has taken you from I like to go fishing to I need to do this every day? Because that's a huge,
combo.
that's a big jump.
A combo of things. I would probably say lately, the last 4 or 5 years, I was doing it as more of a hobby-ish. Was getting to a point where it was expensive, and I finally said, let's see if I could get a job on one of these boats. And so that's what I did. I went down to the docks. I started in Boynton Beach, actually, and started walking the docks, seeing if I could jump on a boat and ride out with somebody who, was eager to have a boat washer, as we call them. And, so it all depends on, some kids get lucky. They start fishing down here in diapers. And, by the time they're 16, 17 years old, they're molded exactly how these charter captains or professional private boat captains want them to be.
Totally makes sense.
So
totally
for me, I started off washing boats, riding out with guys, not getting paid. And, I was kind of discouraged a little bit. And, I kept my head down and kept plugging along. And finally, I got offered a job on a charter boat out of Boynton Beach with Captain Carl Miller on the Miller Time, which is still up and running.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my first opportunity, really. And from there, it really kicked off. And now I'm on the Poseidon Too out of Deerfield Beach. Been there the last 3.5 years, and I don't have any plans on leaving anytime soon.
Awesome. Guys, if you're just joining us, I'm joined by Chris Fay, the Wahoo Whisperer.
What's going on, guys?
The one and only. We're doing a live talk show every single week. We're trying to do it every Wednesday, but if we have a guest coming in on like a Tuesday or a Thursday, we're trying to make accommodations to make that happen too. If you get some time, go ahead and follow us on YouTube. We're actually getting ready to drop a video.
Cool videos on there.
We really do. We've had some cool stuff come out. We did a 2-part Utah series. We've done how-tos with stripping bonitas.
Sure did.
We did an Alaska video. Yeah,
Yeah.
There's some cool stuff on there. So yeah, we highly encourage.
Cool stuff on there.
We highly encourage anybody to check it out. And again, we're going to try to drop a video with Chris Fay in there on Friday. Maybe me and him will do a little fishing tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, if you're just tuning us, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram,
Yeah, there's some
YouTube.
good information on that YouTube channel. How-to videos on certain knot tying, basic knot tying, basic lure selections, little bit of everything.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Fishing has obviously changed a lot, even over the course of like the last 10 years, especially specific to not only freshwater to saltwater. So just tell me about some of the changes that you've witnessed from the time that you got into it to where we're at today.
Well, when I first started charter fishing, a lot of guys were using ballyhoos. And if you do fish, or whether you fish or not, ballyhoos are a really, really good bait. I like to have at least one in the spread every time I leave the dock. But they're expensive. They're real expensive baits.
We do have a good population of them live.
We have a good population of them, but the hard part is having the time to go, spend and catch your bait.
And keep them alive at that.
And keep them alive, stuff like that. So we kind of redeveloped. A couple guys who local charter captains for the last 30 years down here decided to use something that we call bonitas. And we've done a video on how to cut and rig basic bonita strip in South Florida. That's probably the most lethal bait, in my opinion. We use a little bit of sea witches, like these guys here. All it is a head with lead. It's got a couple fake eyeballs on there and some hair with mylar. And you take that with a basic bonita strip, and you troll this around anywhere from 3 to 5 to 7, 8 knots. And everything that swims here, everything that swims will eat this. That's a really good bait. Pink and white, if I were to be told I could only fish one color for the rest of my life, that would be it.
That's it.
Pink and white. Everything in the ocean eats pink and white.
So let me ask you a question. What is going to determine the color of baits that you are going to fly for the day?
Color of baits is pretty. It all depends. When I'm coming out the inlet, running to the fishing destination or wherever we're going to start fishing or looking for the right body of water. Right body of water, I mean by looking where there's bait, maybe a nice edge. Just all depends. But I like to pick my colors depending on the clarity of the water and the sunlight. So if it's super sunny out and the water's real blue, I like to fish something like this. A purple and white that's really light in color. Days where it's overcast and the water might be dark early morning, I like to fish a lot of pink and white, chartreuse.
So just to clarify, making sure I understand, like you're picking your baits based on the contrast of not only the water, but the environment above the water as well.
That's the main thing, yeah. A lot of it has to do with the baits that you're seeing. A lot of times you're running around, you'll see ballyhoos that we mentioned before.
So that's the time you would want to throw blue.
You would want to fish a blue and a purple, a blue and white, an all white. Especially around the moons, the full moons, there's tends to be a lot of shrimp, a lot of squids around. That's when you break this guy out.
Pinks.
A lot of people say colors don't matter.
No, it
colors
totally
do matter.
does. So now let me ask you a question. We're talking about the moon a little bit. What about that is going to influence the bite, or does that influence your color as well, or just
Absolutely.
kind of?
So it all depends on what kind of fishing you're doing. For us here in South Florida, around the moon, especially the full moons, to be totally honest, a lot of the times around the full moon, I'll be fishing an entire spread of nothing but pink.
Wow.
Pink and white, all pink, pink and chartreuse.
Interesting.
This guy right here, which is my secret weapon that I don't even know if I could show Noah this one, is this guy here. This is a basic, all-around lure. If you can see on the camera, it's definitely had its fair share of bites. And by bites, I mean wahoo, tuna, dolphin, everything, we catch out front here will eat that kind of a lure. A lot of people get discouraged by the size of the lure. It's actually funny, the other day we caught the smallest dolphin I have ever caught in the last 15 years. And
Right.
it was on this lure, and the dolphin was about this big.
Wow.
So
So
it all depends on the fish too, a lot of the times, on what they want. Some days, when you see a lot of the small baits that are this big and you see nice fish airing out like tunas or dolphin chasing them, and you go by them and they don't eat this, you got to downsize. You got to fish something like this, or even go smaller. Sometimes just a sea witch with no bait, just a sea
Really?
witch and a hook,
Huh.
and that'll get them. We
So-
call those bug rigs. No bait, just a lure and a hook.
so let's elaborate a little bit on that. You're telling me that you caught a dolphin or a mahi dorado.
Maybe a half inch bigger than that lure right there.
So are these fish hungry or are they territorial? What
It
is
all
it about
depends.
them?
It all depends. I mean,
Interesting.
they're traveling. They're traveling fish. They're always on the move. They're like what we call a blue water fish, open water fish, and that's one that does not stay in the same area. If you saw him in one area today, you can bet your whole bank account that tomorrow he won't be there. They're always moving. They're not like resident fish here like we have like kingfish, that if you see a wad of kingfish in one area on the reef, the next day you go there, chances are they're going to be there. Dolphin,
Totally gotcha.
wahoo, stuff like that, they're always on the constant move.
Gotcha.
So
So now this is the kind of stuff you fish around here. Actually,
those I fish around here as well every once in a
so
while.
a little bit of backstory on this thing. My buddy Tyler over at Yuzuri, shout out to Tyler for sending me some gear. He sent me this thing not too long ago, and I've actually been dying to use it.
Those are lethal.
So
They really are.
I hear that these are really popular in the Bahamas. This is the Yuzuri Bonita.
That's
So
the
it's
right size to pull out front here too.
yeah.
Step
So
down.
so these do come in other sizes. All these lures come in other sizes, right? So this is.
That's a really, really deadly lure,
Talk to me about it, dude. You probably know more about it than I do.
especially for wahoos. That's probably, in my opinion, what this lure was designed to do, was to catch wahoos. They basically, it's a plastic lure with nothing but lead inside, and it goes all over, skips around,
It's just a frantic
we like to
swim.
pull it on a lead. A lot of guys that I know personally who do really well with them, they pull it, they'll tie, straight 100-pound, no wire, straight mono,
Really?
right to the eye of this hook, and they'll take their chances.
Wow.
Take their chances by, wahoos and stuff that eat these kind of baits, they have teeth and they hit the baits at, 50, 60 miles an hour, and they will definitely test your tackle. But these can be trolled. My favorite position for these to be trolled is the closest lure to the boat.
Really?
The closest
Is it like
lure
the
to boat,
whitewater that does
just
it?
below the whitewater, maybe
Huh.
15 yards behind the boat,
Wow.
max. And you get a bite on one of these things, you're gonna know what you got. 'Cause there's gonna be no lying on what eats that.
So now, fishing a lure like that is going to eliminate, probably in a lot of ways,
lot of species.
bycatch. Yeah.
You're not gonna have a 5-pound blackfin tuna that would come up and eat this. That's gonna come up and eat this. It's not gonna happen. Now, I'm not saying that, it's a desert out there. You never know. But my personal experience, the only fish I've caught on these were wahoos and dolphin. That's pretty much the targeted species when you're
awesome.
pulling a lure like that.
So, we talked a little bit about tackle. We definitely talked about our foundations of fishing. Let's talk a little bit about how all of that applies to tournament day. I know that you were just down there at Ocean
Tournaments,
Reef
yeah.
for the Jimmy Johnson. Was it the Jimmy Johnson? Highest paid out sailfish tournament in the world right
Yep.
now, with a winning.
$1.75 million.
That's a lot of money for some sailfish, man.
It sure
That
is.
really is.
It sure is. The sailfish division is definitely the highest paid tournament. that I know of, especially for sailfish. The only richer tournament that I'm aware of in the United States would be
It's the
the
Marlin
White Marlin
Yeah.
Open. Yeah. So it all, it's a great tournament. We fished it. We gave it hell, and we tried hard. And unfortunately, we didn't leave with a paycheck, but we did get a participation ribbon, which was fine with me.
No, that's
That was a good time, man. We all had a good time. You get a lot of good teams that come from all over the country fishing this thing.
There's a lot of legendary boats.
A lot
Oh
of
my
good
God.
boats, a lot of very competitive people, and like myself, who have the love for fishing and just being around cool people, and guys that share the same love for the sport that I do. And that was a fun tournament. We actually didn't fish the sailfish division.
I was going to ask you about
the
that.
meat division, which was kingfish, dolphin, wahoo, tuna, and cobia. The day one, we had the second place kingfish out of 107 boats, which was 26 pounds, and the first place kingfish was 28 pounds. Fishing was tough. We made every bite count. Day two, we went out fishing for tunas, and there's nothing more frustrating than watching tournament-winning fish after tournament-winning fish airing out of the water on baits and not being able to get the bite. And that's what happens, and that's, days where you think you're the man after, catching this and that and yada, yada, yada.
And you get back to the scales, it's another ballgame.
You go and you see that, and I mean, we had a lot of good experience and a lot of knowledge on the boat. RJ Boyle was fishing with us, and Paul, my good buddy Paul Hart, and a couple really good anglers that have been doing it for longer than I've been alive for. And between 5 guys with 100 and some years of experience, not being able to get that fish to eat is super, super, super frustrating.
Sure.
And it was cool to compete. I mean, we saw Michael Jordan was down there on his boat.
He just got that. It's a pretty new boat
yeah,
too,
he's got a.
Actually, my buddy Zach wrapped that thing.
70 Viking or something like that. We saw
That
Kid
shoot,
Rock, Vince Wilfork,
Yeah.
a lot of just a lot of funny NFL players that I've Vince Wilfork was the guy
Yeah.
who retired from the NFL on a barbecue commercial, and I'll never forget that. And
That's awesome.
The one thing he said that I thought was funny was shout out to Dramamine. If you're not familiar with Dramamine, Dramamine's a seasickness pill, and oh man, during his interview, his main go-to was shout out to Dr. Pepper and shout out to Dramamine.
Oh my
And
gosh.
man, we were laughing, but it was a good
That's
time.
awesome.
We didn't win anything, but there's always next year.
So now let me ask you: there's a huge level of what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of competitiveness associated with tournament fishing, but there's also a lot of camaraderie.
Definitely.
Where do you think that the Jimmy Johnson tournament falls into place with something like that?
I mean, that tournament was first class.
Yeah.
Any way you look at it, from the kickoff party at the Hard Rock that we attended to getting free gear from a lot of cool names in the fishing industry, and it was all around a great time. Everybody was there for one reason: to compete against the best sail fishing and meat fishing guys in the country.
For sure.
So I would say overall it was a really, really good turnout.
Cool.
There was like I said, 107 boats that fished it. Some boats had 5 anglers, some boats had 30 anglers.
Sure.
Some guys have never fished a tournament. Some guys have fished every tournament.
Gotcha.
So there's different divisions for different, depending on what you want to do. You don't have to, enter the top dog of the tournament. I believe the first place boat was Seraphim.
Okay.
Which is a big merit boat out of, I believe, Ocean Reef,
Gotcha.
Right there in their backyard. And
I was going to
think
say they probably know
won
that water well.
$560,000, I believe. And there was a lot of other teams that left with $200,000, $250,000, $100,000. And then there was teams like my team that left with a red ribbon that said pretty much better luck next year, which
Sure.
is fine
Yeah.
because we'll be back.
Well, that's awesome, dude. Guys, again, if you're just joining us, this is the kickoff of our live stream. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're dropping awesome videos. We have
Definitely
tons of
check it out.
how-tos with Chris Fay. We did the bonita strip videos. And maybe
knot tying videos.
we did do a knot tying video. You
a
guys
couple
showed
cool
me.
videos.
You guys showed me the Australian braid knot.
The
That
Australian
blew
braid.
my mind.
The Australian braid is not for the beginner, I
No,
must say.
no, it is
but there
not.
is knots on there that we've done, like the basic uni knot that I use every single day. And there's all kinds of good information, not just fishing. There's other, snowboarding videos.
Yeah, that's true.
Out in Montana or Utah, and There's Alaska, fishing with Bill Lepre and those guys.
We got to get Bill back on here one of these
Yeah,
days.
he's
He's
busy.
cool.
He's busy
Yeah.
slaying the clown knife fish. And
That
the
guy
peacock
invented
bass.
it. That guy
He's
literally
the
invented
man.
clown knife fishing.
He
Shout out
is
to
the
Bill
man.
if you're watching. That's,
Billy, I don't know if you're watching, but if you are,
oh, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. So let's just, before I let it get away from you guys, we're doing a giveaway as well. Drop your best saltwater fishing story in the comments. We're gonna pick the best. We're gonna pick the best story today.
Sure.
We're gonna give away. I don't know. Let's give away a straw hat.
let's give away a straw hat.
We'll tag the winner. We'll have us message you, or we'll message you, whatever it is. We'll get you hooked up. But yeah,
Tag
guys,
a couple buddies.
tag some buddies too.
Show
We'd
your
love to hear their
friends.
fishing stories. Yeah, man.
Absolutely. If you have any questions too,
Yeah.
we're always open to.
Actually, we got DQ, my boy, over here running the stream. Do we have anything on the Instagram questions?
I am not
Are we up
on
there?
Instagram, I'm on the Facebook.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, if you got any questions, fire them off at us, man. We're happy to hear them. I'm trying to think what else, bud. So,
yeah, what else can we cover?
talk
a
to
little
me.
bit about baits. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about transitioning.
Yeah, man. So right
the
now
weather,
it's
we didn't
raining
talk
like
about weather.
crazy.
We did
It's
not
raining
talk
like
about
crazy right now. So how? I mean, I know that's going to affect your spread, like the kind of lures that you're actually going to put
Yeah.
out. But how does it affect the bite? How does it affect the
It all
water?
depends on, rain, basic rain. Me personally, I love offshore fishing in the rain, especially when it gets cloudy, especially this time of year. Beginning of April, May, June is probably, I'd say, I wouldn't say, I'm telling you that definitely is my favorite time to be fishing here. I like to tell all my friends, if you own a boat in South Florida and you don't go fishing from, April, May to June, you should probably sell your boat if you're a fisherman. That's my favorite time to fish. That's what I tell all our clients. If you're looking for a really, really good time of a lot of different species, we catch a lot of king mackerel, a lot of tunas, blackfin tunas, all the dolphin mahis you want, wahoos, sailfish. But definitely the weather has a lot to do with it. Especially a day like today here, we're getting some rain. Rain this time of the year usually means a front. Fronts happen a lot in the wintertime here. This is kind of the tail end of our season for fronts. But the fishing can be tough on fronts. Leading up to the front can be some really, really good fishing. Days of fishing on the front, like today, I talked to a couple of my buddies who are out there now, and it's slow. It's really slow. We're coming up on the full moon, which is full moon, full bellies, depending on species you're targeting, is definitely a tough one. But fishing on the front can be good for some species like sailfish. Mostly guys, big, legends down here, Art Sapp, Skip Dana, these guys, when they hear of a front and they hear sailfish, they're going sail fishing, they're packing their stuff, and they're, that's their favorite kind of fishing. For a guy like me, when I hear of a front coming, I kind of shrug my shoulders a little bit, knowing that I have trips where people want to catch fish. So I'll kind of change my tactics from trolling to try and do a little bit more of wreck fishing, more residential stuff than going looking for stuff that I know is there, but might not be eating at the time. So like yesterday we fished and, I'm marking all kinds of stuff, while we're trolling, and it was tough. We caught 2 out of 3 wahoos yesterday.
It's not bad.
And, they weren't big, 18, 20 pounders, which any wahoo, in my opinion, if it's got stripes, it's a nice one. But weather is a big, big factor. Like I said, yesterday we were out and we were trolling by and marking all kinds of, bonitos and kingfish and stuff that's pretty common and fairly easy to catch out front here. And we couldn't get them to eat, so it just all depends. So I've had days fishing on the front where it's been phenomenal. And I've had days fishing on fronts more than not where it is very, very tough fishing. So I always like fishing after the front.
Right.
Maybe not right after the front, maybe a day or two. It's like when we have a hurricane here and, you get this big giant waves and everything's stirred up offshore and everybody, can't wait till the ocean to get calm and go fishing. Well, 85-90% of the time after a hurricane, you go fishing, they're still stirred up.
Oh yeah.
They're still running around. They don't know what's what. So, you just have these high hopes of, going out there and it's fishing. You're not, you're not going to go out there every day and have a, super successful
For
trip
sure.
as you did, on your last trip. So that's what keeps you humble, and that's what keeps you coming back.
No, well said.
So-
I totally agree. So now, if I'm hearing you correctly, you would rather fish the front phase of the moon than the back phase of the moon.
I like personally, my favorite fish to catch are wahoo, and that's pretty
on
much
the full moon.
what we target. Yeah, some days they won't eat on the full moon.
Really?
Some days they'll eat all the way up to the moon, and then once the moon's around, the reason why they don't like eating a lot on the full moon, other species of fish, is because there's more light. More light from the moon
Makes them
penetrating the
prey.
water. It's easier for them to find food at night as opposed to low light moons or half moons or crescent moons where there's not a lot of light. And it's, they can't see well. They can't find food at night, so they feed during the day. When you go fishing during the day, then you'll get some bites. But like I said, no, it all depends on, where you're fishing. That's a big thing. What time you're fishing. The tides is super important. Tides is probably the most important part to fishing, especially here where we fish. You're fishing 150 to 300 feet of water, which is a mile offshore. So you're close to that inlet, so you really, like a guy like me, a lot of people say, oh, the charter boats, they stay relatively close to the inlets.
No, well,
there's-
that's what separates you guys from.
There's a reason for that too, though. There's constant flowing of water or pulling of water from the outgoing tide where it's flushing all the water out,
Right.
from the intercoastal. And those fish are, staying in that area waiting for easy meals. So it all depends, man. And me personally, wrecks.
I'm right there with you. I
Find your
love wreck
wrecks,
fishing.
know where your wrecks are, and if you're a trolling guy, really pull your spread over all those wrecks. Don't just, go one time over the wreck and keep going to the next one. Try every angle, and
Right.
when pay attention which way the current's going. Current has a lot to do with the factor, of where the fish will be. If it's a north current, the fish aren't going to be on the north side of the wreck.
No, they're
going
gonna
to
be
on the
looking-
south side of the wreck, waiting for the north tide to push all their baits on.
Right.
So there's
Well, that's
a lot
interesting.
of different things, that people don't. I mean, you're fishing.
Of course.
No, you're just going
Yeah.
fishing. Well, you are going fishing, but there's a lot more to it than
No, of course.
just going fishing.
And it's
So,
not cheap to run these big boats. I mean,
no,
you guys got to
there's nothing
really,
cheap about
Yeah.
fishing, especially offshore fishing.
you got to really have them dialed in and just be out there every day to
That's the
really
thing.
understand it.
That's the thing.
Gotcha.
You
So
know?
now let's talk about something a little bit more complex, a little bit more just sought after, I guess I would say in a lot of ways, is sword fishing. It's just
Sword
becoming
fishing's
more
fun.
and more popular. It's something I know you're really good at,
Absolutely.
especially when it comes to your baits and stuff.
We used to do a lot of it in high school before, a lot of guys really knew what sword fishing was. Me and my best friend were sneaking out there senior year and going sword fishing. Once, I'll tell you a funny story when we first started sword fishing, and we'd go out. My buddy had a little 20-foot sailfish or some old school boat, and not the ideal boat to be running 20
No,
some
that's-
miles offshore.
that's
in.
far.
But anyway, long story short, we get out there and we'd have these baits that, at the time we thought looked good, but they did not look good. And the fishing was so good for swordfish out front here. Out front here by, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale area, there's a spot on the GPS, which is called the Double Zeros. It's a known breeding ground for swordfish, just like the Grand Banks and the Northeast is. There's only a very few places where they're known to breed in certain areas. One of them is right here.
So let's talk about that for a second. We don't know as much about these fish as we claim to, or like as much as we like to think we know. So we're really still trying to figure them out.
Everybody's still trying to figure them out. They live, in a dark place, 2,000 feet down, cold water. If you ever seen a swordfish, and you could see a swordfish this big, and his eyeballs are going to be this big.
Of course.
I remember Deerfield Beach a year ago. A swordfish eyeball actually washed up on the beach,
Whoa.
and they had news cameras. Nobody knew what it was. They thought it was a sea monster. And my mom or dad called me and said, "Man, you got to come down here and see what this thing is." And I saw it on the news, and I called my dad back. And
You really
said,
know,
"Yeah,
Dad,
that's
I know
a,
exactly what that
swordfish
is."
eye. What's the big, hype?" And man, it was funny. But sword fishing here is some of the best in the world. And it definitely is. I've caught plenty of nice fish out here. I've been lucky enough to catch 3 fish over 500 pounds, which
Nice.
us in sword
In this
fishing
day and
terms
age, that's
is
impressive.
called a nickel. And we'd like to say bust a nickel. That's
I like
a
that.
500-pound fish. And once you've achieved that, which is not easy to do, you know, it's cool to kind of be a part of the 500-pound club.
That's cool.
So
That's really
we've
cool.
caught them all the way from, you know, little guys we've seen darting around next to the boat, and we've caught them all the way up to 580 pounds. And there's been guys, you know, 20 years ago, before I even knew what a swordfish we're catching, you know, 700, 800, 900-pound fish.
What's the record right now? I think it's like a 12 or 13.
Yeah,
it's
big.
crazy.
It's big.
There's some
But
big fish out there.
Going to the market, like down in, when I used to do a lot of commercial sword fishing, dropping fish off to Floridian or one of the places in, you know, local seafood places, wholesalers, you'd see these pictures on the walls of, you know, maybe the guy who owns the fish market
Sure.
or guys who used to bring them fish, and there was 1,000-pound fish, man. And they're still out there.
Oh, for
they're
sure.
still out there. I've hooked a giant one that I got to see once, and that looked like the short bus swimming around in the water, man. That thing was something serious to
Wow.
see. And that's what keeps you coming back, man.
That's-
That's
yeah.
really what keeps you coming back.
Absolutely.
But
so,
baits, you said something about baits.
So yeah, let's talk about it a little
Swordfish
bit.
will eat anything, in my
So okay, so I know there's a few different choice baits. People like kingfish, people like bonita,
Yeah,
people like
bonita.
dolphin.
Bonita.
I hear people using eel too.
opinion. Eels is a great one.
So are they? I mean, again, this is actually something I've never done. I fished a lot.
Yeah.
I fished hard, but I've never done that.
Sword fishing is very technical. It's not like any kind of other fishing. If you've done a lot of fishing, you will know it. If you attempt to go sword fishing, just getting your bait to the bottom in 2,000 feet of water without a tangle is an art in itself.
It's true.
And the main thing is, you know, you're fishing, you know, you're pretty much fishing for 1 bite, 2 bites. You know, back when you know, guys used to do a lot of it, when I was in, you know, 10 years ago, when we were doing a lot of it, we were getting bites every drop.
Wow.
I mean, we were as fast as you could get a bait down to the bottom. And we didn't know. We thought we were hanging bottom. And, you know, these fish, what they do is, when they eat the bait, they tend, a nice fish, like 150 pounds or bigger. When they eat the bait, there's a 10-pound lead that's attached to your rig. And when they eat the bait, they take a lot of drag, and they feel something weird, which is that 10-pound lead that they're swimming around. So what they do is, there's a term called they slack you off. The rod tip actually will go from a position like you're hung on the bottom in a matter of, like you lost your whole rig.
Wow.
And back in the day, which
Well,
we
that's
didn't
just them
really
picking
get taught,
picking your lead up and taking it away. That's all that
picking
is.
your lead up. What he's actually doing is he's swimming so fast to the surface with that 10-pound lead. It's
Oh, that
actually
it looks
the
like you're
only
broken
thing
off.
that when they do that technique, it's the only thing that saves you is that hook in the mouth
Right.
with that 10-pound lead.
Oh, it's keeping it down.
Keeping it hooked because
Gotcha.
you have nothing there. It's
Right.
slacked off, and that electric reel that you're fishing doesn't have the power to keep up with it because
Right.
it's swimming so fast.
Of course.
So going back to when we first started doing it, me and my buddies, Cooper and I, we used to go out there and we thought we were hanging the bottom. And so we looked at each other, we go, oh, we just broke everything off again, because we'd see the rod go like this. Well, we'd be sitting there re-rigging, you know, not being discouraged, just trying, trial and error, because just getting out there is $150, $200 in fuel.
For sure.
So we're sitting there one day, and I see this fish come out. Boom! Like a big one, like 300, 400 pounder.
Wow.
And I'm looking at Cooper, and I'm going, buddy, what is that? At this time,
Yeah.
the reel is still spooling like
Right,
this.
right.
So we're thinking, I'm going, man, in the back of my head, I'm going, there's no way that could be my fish. And
That could
sure
be your
enough,
fish, dude.
that rod went from this position to
Wow.
right where that fish
Wow.
jumped. And I'll never forget it. That's the day we figured out all those bites that we had that we thought we were hanging the bottom were all swordfish.
That's
and
crazy.
that's pretty much how we learned how to do it.
That's
and the
crazy.
other, RJ Boyle has videos that I really, really would like to start, you know, trying to do, you know, with you and I,
Sure.
doing an informational sword fishing video. A lot of cool information on it. It's super tricky, but once you get it figured out, it's not hard at all.
Gotcha.
You know, so that's another another day for another YouTube
For sure.
YouTube episode.
Dude, we'll do it. We'll have you back on here. We'll talk about it some more.
Absolutely, man. I would love to.
Awesome.
I definitely would love to.
So let's circle back around to the baits. We're using dolphin, we're using kingfish, we're using bonita, we're using eel. Is the goal when you're rigging these baits, and I've seen them, it almost looks like you're stitching up a football.
Yeah.
Is the end goal for all these different fish to look like the same type of bait? Are they supposed to be different? And then on the drop, sorry to keep going, but like when you drop, the idea is again to keep it tangle free all the way down the column.
That's the trick.
So so when you stitch this up a certain way, you want it to swim, you want it to like have a certain presentation. Talk to me a little bit about what the bait is supposed to look like and why.
The best, I mean, in my opinion, what's worked well for me over the years, it's all about the wiggle. The wiggle of the bait. It's all about the wiggle. I mean, it really is. It's all about the wiggle, and by the wiggle, I mean you're fishing so far away from your bait that you don't know what it looks like.
Right.
You can't, say, hey, how's my bait swimming? As opposed to rigging a ballyhoo and seeing it swim behind the boat, you could say, hey, how's my bait look? My bait looks good. Bonita, I would say, is my favorite. Dolphin is a good one, but it doesn't matter what you're fishing. You just want to be able to have a bait that swims good.
Gotcha.
And by swimming good, you can't have any little hiccup in your bait, because what's going to happen is
it's going to spin out.
It's going to start, think of it as a surfboard like we talked
the
about in the
bonita
strip video on YouTube. We talked a little bit about the beveling. When you cut a bait, you can't, just cut it however you want to cut it. There's certain chemistry that you have to, address to make sure that bait, and like I said, it's like a surfboard. If you look at a surfboard the way it's shaped, if it was that easy, everybody would be shaping surfboards. It's not. You have to follow that exact, so when it goes down a wave, it doesn't wiggle or it doesn't get on its side and then cause it to spin. The same thing with a good swordfish bait is you want to make sure that bait is symmetrical and that it's tracking through the water good and not hiccuping, and because if it does, you're fishing lights on your line. One little, offset of your bait,
you got a mess.
You're gonna,
and you won't even know it.
You won't know it. And buddy, when I tell you I've been there, you do not want to be that guy.
The baits aren't cheap either.
You've been that guy.
Yeah.
Nothing is cheap about sword fishing.
No.
Sword fishing is by far the most expensive offshore fishing there is. Just to be able to go catch one, you need about a $5,000 electric reel, which there's ways around it. But a guy like me, I'm not reeling a 10-pound lead.
No.
2,000 feet up off the bottom.
No.
But yeah, like I said, I mean, it's super expensive, but the good
the
thing
reward,
is,
man.
if you can figure out how to do it, the next trick is convincing one of your buddies with a boat to let you show them how to catch a swordfish.
Right.
That's the next trick.
That's a diabolical plan, man.
I think swordfish baits, it doesn't. I've done a lot of sword fishing. I've cleaned a lot of swordfish. I've seen banana peels. I've seen all kinds of random stuff.
Wow.
They're scavengers.
Sure.
At 2,000 feet down in pitch blackness, you can't see anything. They find when they come across something, 95% of the time,
it's food.
They whack it and they eat it. So
guys, again, if you're just joining us, we're here with Chris Fay, the Wahoo Whisperer, true legend around the Palm Beaches. We're just talking about fishing. We're talking about sword. No, dude. If they're asking you to speak at seminars and host conferences, you made it, dude.
That's any information that that's how I was taught. I was taught a lot of trial and error, going out there and doing it, by myself and seeing, what works and what doesn't work, that kind of stuff. And you got to start somewhere at any job. Fishing is a job for me. Fishing isn't really a job for me. I love what I do. And some days are better than others, but it just all depends. So.
Gotcha. Again, guys, if you're just joining us, we're live here today. We're going to do this every week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. A lot of what we're talking about is on the channel. There's a really cool series of how-to videos, how to rig bonitas, how to rig these sea witches. And guys, if you are just joining us again, we are doing a live giveaway. Drop your best saltwater fishing story in the comments. We're going to go through them. We're going to read them all, and we're going to pick the coolest story.
Make sure they have Wahoos in them.
Make sure, maybe we will do bonus points for Wahoo.
It doesn't matter wherever you're at.
Yeah.
We like it all.
So we're going to start to wind it down a little bit. Tell us a little bit about some trips and some fishing that you're excited about this year.
Well, I'm always excited to fish.
Sorry to interrupt. Outside of fishing, I also want to hear about your Montana trip.
Montana, yeah, we are going. I'm a South Florida guy. I'm not a big cold weather guy. I'm a little nervous to get out there and be in 10-degree weather, but I'm excited. SA's provided me some super cool gear to rep out there and take some cool footage and do a lot of I love taking pictures, especially outside and of. I've never even been out west before at all. So
really,
me and my girl Katie and my buddy AJ are going. We got invited to go spend some time out in Big Sky, Montana.
It's beautiful area.
Actually, a good buddy of ours, his family has a big ranch out there, and has been lucky enough to invite us to go stay for a week out there. And I was, I wasn't super into it when I first heard about it, but it kind of sunk in, and Noah was just out west there and put me in on some cool stuff. And everybody I talked to was like, "Dude, go!
It's cool stuff. It's really cool stuff."
So I made my tickets, and we're going in a week from today. We'll leave Wednesday morning, and we're gonna do a little bit of snowboarding, a little bit of trout fishing.
Cool.
A little bit of snowmobiling.
There you go.
Basically, whatever. I'm pretty much game for whatever they want to do. I want to do some Nordic skiing is what I'm really. A little cross country action.
That's a workout.
But
that's a workout.
We're definitely gonna, yeah. Oh, I'm not.
I'm just figuring to let you know.
For miles.
Right.
I want to test it out. I'm definitely gonna need some kind of motor to propel me through through the snow.
Yeah. So, that's awesome, dude.
But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. I'm going to Montana, and I'm really hoping to get out to Costa Rica this year.
There you go.
Had a lot of good invites from a couple of my buddies who work on some private boats. Who,
awesome.
Fish out of Los Sueños and do a lot of fishing over there.
That's all West Coast, I imagine.
What's that?
That's all the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that's Costa Rica. That's another place I'd really like to go is the Dominican Republic.
There you go.
A lot of my
good
buddies
fishing there
go,
too.
Every year, and charter fishing here, being lucky enough to be on, in my opinion, and a lot of other people's opinions, depending on who you talk to, best charter boat in South Florida. It's tough, getting the time to go, do anything. We're lucky enough to have super awesome clients who book with us and fish with us a lot. That's a blessing in its own way. And, I'd love to take some time off to do some traveling, but, when you fish a lot of the same clients for X amount of years, when they book a trip, they want you there.
For sure.
And I get it.
Yeah.
So, the time that I really wanted to do was now. I wanted to go see some snow, and my girl's never even, she's seen snow, but she's never seen it, fake snow where they blow it up for the mountain or whatever. And I was looking at the forecast for next week, and apparently it's always snowing there. So
just the elevation alone.
We'll be excited for that. So it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. Me and Ryan Copenhagen were just out there.
I saw a video, YouTube video.
Dude, that was a good trip.
Sick.
Shout out to Ryan if you're watching, man.
Oh, he's got to be watching. If he's not,
we're trying to get him on. Yeah, no, we're trying to get him on here one of these days. I'm gonna go out and hang out with him this weekend. We're doing.
That looks like fun, man. I got to get in on one of those trips.
You wanna go?
I'm always game, but I got to work.
I know. No, me and Ryan, I think you're going to do a lot of inshore. I'm not a big inshore guy.
Yeah,
I've always been in bill fishing, reefs, and wrecks.
It's my clients tell me they want to go light tackle fishing, and we fish big reels, and I tell them, you want to go light tackle fishing, just back the drag off a little bit. Let them fight them all you want. You can fight them for 45 minutes if you want.
That's awesome.
So, hey, inshore fishing's fun, man.
Cool.
Any kind of tug is the drug, baby.
Yeah.
Any kind of fight back is what we're looking for.
So then, now to circle back around to some of the fishing we're doing this year, I know you're stoked for Montana. I know you're stoked to see your regulars again. Are there any tournaments that you're doing? Is there any just in general that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, we're going to, a couple of my buddies and I, we're going to fish. We put a little tournament team together to fish Jamie Bunn's tournaments.
There you go.
In the meat division.
Awesome.
Kind of transition now from sail fishing, which the last tournament is the final sail, which is in, I think, Key West, I want to say.
That sounds about right.
Key West, I believe, which I am not fishing.
Right.
I love sail fishing, especially charter fishing. But if there was other fishing I could do, it would probably be meat fishing. Meat fishing, I mean, just, trolling or live baiting for other species other than sails. Gotcha. But I'm super excited. We're gonna fish my buddy's 31 contender,
there you go.
We're gonna fish all the the KDW tournaments, KDW Kingfish Dolphin Wahoo tournaments, and there's some really good ones out of Palm Beach as well. These boats get upwards of 200 boats. Guys think that they have what it takes to catch the biggest fish or the nicest fish, which all you need is a good couple baits and a little bit of luck. So it's anybody's game. That's the beauty of it. And if it wasn't, then you'd only have 4 or 5 boats.
For sure.
But when you have 150, 200 boats,
that's really interesting.
And the cool thing is there's a lot of professional teams. The guys that have been fishing for, like the Liquid or Native Sun, or Advanced Roofing, or all these guys that are always up in the money. These guys have been fishing for forever.
Of course.
Well, there's not only categories when like a 21-footer enters. Like a lot of my friends who have boats of that size, there's other divisions. There's small boat division, which you're only competing against other boats of that size. A boat with 4 motors and 1,800 horsepower, they can go run to Palm Beach Inlet or Jupiter, or go fish where the fish are. A boat with a single, 150 Yamaha or
it's a little
E-Tech
different.
Or whatever you got, you're kind of pinned to, fishing out front, which is not a bad thing.
No.
A lot of the teams, a good buddy of mine caught an 80-pound wahoo last year, and that was right out front Boca Inlet, or out front Hillsborough Inlet.
That's awesome.
And you just never know where they're going to be. And that's
sure.
the beauty of tournament fishing is, you get a lot of guys who share the same love for what we do. And that's pretty much it, man.
Well said.
Get out there and hope and pray for, the right bite. That's
For
what
sure.
we're always chasing. Every day we're chasing for the right bite.
Right.
So.
Well, cool, man. We got about 5 minutes left. We're going to start to wind it down a bit. Cool. Just out of curiosity, I know you said you've got potentially a Costa Rica trip, potentially a Dominican Republic trip.
Yeah, man.
What is like the ultimate, if you could go Japan, Alaska, anywhere in the world, what's your bucket list trip?
That would be a tough one.
I know, right?
That I would probably need to sit down and think. But for a guy like me, my favorite fishing, wahoo fishing, there's some really, really off the grid kind of places that hold, big wahoos. Honestly, we're lucky to, live.
We have a good population right here.
We have a great population, and especially the Bahamas. The Bahamas wahoo fishery in, the wintertime, starting, September to pretty much ending now, is some of the best in the world, anywhere you could go. I've been on trips over there where, we've caught 12 fish in the first 30 minutes of a tide. And the smallest fish being 40 pounds, 50 pounds.
That's awesome.
So it just all depends. But wahoo fishing is my favorite. I would probably say not some super gnarly place that you would think, probably like the Cayman Islands or something.
Really?
They have some of the best wahoo fishing, in the world. So that's probably where my bucket list, where I'll be sometime.
Awesome.
A good buddy of mine went not too long ago, and he whacked them good.
Awesome.
So that'll probably be my bucket list. And there's another place that I'd like to go experience, which is Isla Mujeres, Mexico.
Right.
And that's the
I
sail
do
fishing,
love fishing in Mexico.
marlin, and just and I fished in Mexico before, just not Isla, which is a super small island,
Right.
and has some of the best, amazing billfish population in the world.
Wow.
I watch it every day on my Snapchats from my buddies who fish on other boats, and they're posting videos and Instagram posts and YouTube channels, and you never get tired of watching that kind of stuff.
Totally.
So.
Well, cool, man. It's great. It's interesting you say that. I've most of the bill fishing that I've done has actually been in Mexico on the West Coast.
Mexico is good.
I had a really nice marlin when I was younger in Acapulco, and a really nice sailfish on that trip too. And then last year we got into a really, really nice striped marlin.
That's
so
super
there's
cool.
good populations
they're
there.
Catching a lot there, and that's where you see a lot of the videos from places like Isla, or places off the grid kind of places where bait goes every year, and it's been like that for the last hundreds of years.
Awesome.
So.
Awesome. Well, good stuff, dude. Chris, thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time.
SA Nation.
Yeah, dude, get some shirts, man.
Make sure you tag your buddies, go on YouTube, subscribe. There's some good information, and there'll be some even better stuff coming in the near future.
Thanks, dude. Much appreciated. And again, subscribe. We got a video with Chris Fay coming out. We got some stuff out there already.
Back in there.
We got to put those
Safety
back.
Deposit box.
The safety deposit box. Again, thank you, bro. We'll see you next time.
You got it, man.
Rise up to lower you.